Labour fears a political fallout over the Easton affair. The Rainbow Warrior set sail, ready for another nuclear battle, and refitting the Flying Pig to dominate the skies.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Jim Waley.
Good evening. Carmen Lawrence has hit back at opposition claims that she was responsible for the suicide of Perth lawyer Penny Easton. While Labour makes no bones about sticking by Dr Lawrence, there are fears the damage is slowly building. ALP National President Barry Jones has warned that if the affair drags on, it could cripple the government. Laurie Wilson has our report.
Carmen Lawrence was clearly upset by the claim that somehow she was responsible for triggering Penny Easton's suicide.
Any suggestion that I killed Penny Easton is gutter politics and should be totally rejected. Okay.
Thank you very much.
But while the Prime Minister says no link has been established between the controversial petition tabled in the West Australian Parliament and Miss Easton's suicide, the coroner's report released last night by the dead woman's mother, Barbara Campbell, suggests otherwise.
Penny's letter and the coroner's report absolutely made that very clear, that there was a definite connection.
Dr Lawrence has consistently maintained she had only limited knowledge of the petition, despite evidence to the contrary, both from her former staff and her cabinet colleagues.
I heard Penny Easton's mother this morning and I thought her concerns about the what she saw as relationship between the petition and the death were very disturbing.
But, faced with the Prime Minister's claim the opposition is trying to put Dr Lawrence on trial for Penny Easton's suicide, John Howard insists that's not what's at issue.
The line of attack here is not to link Carmen Lawrence with Penny Easton's death. The line of attack is to demand why the Prime Minister won't affirm that his ministers are required to tell the truth.
The government appears determined to tough it out and stand by Carmen Lawrence, regardless of the outcome of the Royal Commission. But there was this word of warning from Labor Party President Barry Jones.
There's the danger of if it goes on and on, it could have a paralysing effect. I mean, that's the worst thing of all.
Which is precisely what the opposition is hoping for. Laurie Wilson reporting for Nightline.
The Royal Commission into the Hindmarsh Island Bridge has been rocked by a surprise decision in the Supreme Court. It's ruled that the way in which the state government moved to allow the divulging of secret Aboriginal matters was invalid.
Members of the Aboriginal legal rights movement left court claiming a victory. They didn't stop the inquiry, but a huge obstacle has been placed in the Commission's path. The full court ruled authorisations by Aboriginal Affairs Minister Michael Armitage allowing divulgence of matters of secret Aboriginal tradition were invalid. The court said there wasn't full consultation with interested parties before the authorisations were granted.
There is a considerable amount of information which, right at this moment, is unlawfully with the Royal Commission and before the Royal Commission.
Just how the court's decision will affect the future direction of the Commission is unclear. Dr Armitage says he followed legal advice.
I fully understand the Westminster principle. The buck stops with me. I accept that the decision was mine. But like any good minister, I take advice. And the advice was this was a perfectly reasonable process.
Dr Armitage will pass on his powers to Deputy Premier Stephen Baker, so Mr Baker can go through a new consultation process and decide on new authorisations. Lawyers at the inquiry argued it should stop until there were new authorisations. But despite the lawyers' stance, Commissioner Ira Stevens decided to go on with evidence that did not touch on secret Aboriginal tradition. The Commission is expected to resume in the middle of next week. Nina Stevens for Nightline.
Sydney police are searching for the killer of a teenager stabbed just metres from his home for a wallet that may have contained as little as $10. Student Peter Savage was returning home from football training last night when he was attacked. The 16-year-old died from a single stab wound to the heart. South Australian police are baffled and disturbed by the abduction and assault of a 20-month-old baby girl in Adelaide. The infant was taken through her bedroom window last night and found in the front yard of a house in the morning. Police say the baby girl had been sexually assaulted. She was taken to hospital for observation. David Kang, found guilty of firing a starter's pistol at Prince Charles, has been sentenced to 500 hours of community service. Kang was convicted of threatening unlawful violence against the Prince on Australia Day last year. The 24-year-old said he was trying to publicise the plight of Cambodian boat people. The Rainbow Warrior has left Tahiti heading for round 2 with the French Navy off Mururoa. The Greenpeace protesters are bracing for an even tougher showdown this time as they attempt to disrupt atomic testing.
A Greenpeace inflatable dwarfed by the French naval presence. At this early stage, though, it's not part of an action, merely a boat drill in Papeete Harbour. While the crew spent the morning readying the Warrior for less friendly contact at sea, there's speculation that upwards of 15 French naval vessels may be gathering to meet them at the atoll.
One reason the French military wants to keep the tests going is to give themselves a job in the Pacific.
While he's obviously enjoying a dig, the Warrior's skipper is serious about the journey's purpose, even if he's realistic about the chances of success.
We'll hope to win, obviously, but we'll see.
At present, the crew are estimating it will take 3 days to reach the military exclusion zones surrounding Mururoa. There, this ship will rendezvous with 3 other Greenpeace vessels, including the MV Greenpeace, onto which half of us in the international media contingent will transfer.
There too, the Warrior will be joined by other flotilla members currently in transit.
We know that there are about 30 en route. I think we'll be one of the first to arrive, so we're not expecting a reception except from the French warships possibly.
And considering their idea of hospitality, the warmth of this afternoon's Tahitian farewell will have to be made to last. Janet Gibson on board the Rainbow Warrior for Nightline.
The Air Force is pumping $500 million worth of new muscle into its ageing fleet of F-111s. The refit will make the plane they call the Pig into one of the most advanced bombers in the skies.
These are the first pictures of scientists converting Australia's 30-year-old F-111s. The conversion arguably will turn the aircraft into the best tactical fighter bombers in the world.
Total package would be close to $500 million.
Old cogs and levers make way for the latest digital defence technology. America, phasing out F-111s, is reportedly amazed at what its ANZUS partner is doing to the plane, nicknamed the Pig.
It would cost about $100 million per airframe if we want to replace it with another aircraft type, such as the F-15 Eagle.
The federal government says the RAF must fly the F-111 until the year 2020.
By then, these F-111s will have been in service for nearly 50 years, and the Air Force plans to use a kind of Band-Aid system on the fatigue cracks on the aircraft that come with age.
US defence giant Rockwell is assisting with the conversion. These permitted shots from within its top-secret testing facility at Palmdale. Meanwhile, in the skies over Queensland, a G model with partial upgrade. Our pilots have already tested a full prototype in the United States.
It's still got a few little glitches there we'll get rid of, but the aircraft itself was very nice to fly.
The Air Force hopes to have 2 of its 36 revamped F-111s in the air by Christmas. Michael Lyons for Nightline.
After the break, tracking down the computer-age Nazi and found the long-lost Elvis song. But is it Elvis? The New South Wales government stumbles over toll roads continue. Sydney drivers are likely to be hit with another toll, despite an election promise. Roads Minister Michael Knight says motorists will pay to travel through a planned tunnel beneath East Sydney, even though Premier Carr said earlier it would be free. The move follows the reneging of a promise to drop tolls on the M4 and M5 motorways, which will in fact jump 50 cents next year. A fierce wildfire has destroyed homes and thousands of hectares of bushland on New York's Long Island. The blaze has swept through a summer resort, popular with some of the Big Apple's richest residents, and President Clinton has called in the army to help bring it under control.
They started early yesterday afternoon and raced south through the parched pine barrens, jumping a major highway that crossed their path. Within hours, the flames consumed more than 3,000 acres. Governor Pataki called a state of emergency, giving Suffolk County more desperately needed resources.
We're bringing in additional resources. We have 4 more National Guard helicopters coming in tonight with the capacity to drop over 200 gallons of shot on the fire. We're bringing in forest rangers from all across the state.
Firefighters evacuated hundreds of residents. Up to 10 houses were lost and a lumber yard was destroyed. The winds, gusting at 25 miles per hour, were treacherous and unpredictable. Even veteran firefighters were awed.
That fire just moved in on us like we all said it was coming. You saw what hell was like.
Britain is hoping that a clemency deal will breathe new life into the flagging Northern Ireland peace process. London is offering early release for hundreds of IRA and Loyalist prisoners before next week's first anniversary of the IRA ceasefire. A year of negotiations has failed to secure a permanent end to the fighting. An American Nazi may soon be facing trial in Germany for hate crimes. Denmark has cleared the way for the extradition of Gary Lauck, who could be jailed for 5 years for spreading propaganda.
American neo-Nazi Gary Lauck was defiant even in defeat. Questioned in English, he answered in German. The fight goes on. He may be little known in America, but in Europe, he's considered a dangerous neo-Nazi cult hero. At a demonstration last weekend in Denmark, his name was the rallying cry.
The Jews are the enemies of the white race. They are trying to exterminate us.
He's known as the Farm Belt Führer because he lives in Nebraska, sports a Hitler mustache, and uses a make-believe German accent.
Hello, I am Gerhard Lauck, head of the NSDAP AO.
The hatred, though, is real. In America, he produced reams of neo-Nazi hate literature protected by the First Amendment, literature he mailed into Germany where such material is illegal. Then, say German authorities, he went high-tech, using computers to message supporters on how to make bombs and incite violence. Getting Lauck behind bars, said a German prosecutor tonight, will greatly reduce neo-Nazi propaganda flowing into Germany. A world of violence and hate is what Gary Lauck is peddling, but the Farm Belt Führer's world may soon shrink to the size of a German prison cell.
White power.
In South Korea, at least one person has died and nearly 200 were injured when a crowded passenger train plunged off a bridge during a heavy storm. Carriages landed in a river swollen by 3 days of torrential rain. The country is now preparing for a typhoon, which is expected to hit tomorrow. With scientists saying there's an 80% chance of a volcanic eruption, the capital of the Caribbean island of Montserrat has been left deserted. Chance's Peak volcano has been spewing ash for a month. If it does blow, a Dunkirk-style evacuation is planned. There's also another danger. A hurricane is heading for the island. The world's biggest wedding was held in South Korea today when 35,000 couples tied the knot at a ceremony blessed by the founder of the so-called Moonies. The Reverend Moon spent the past 15 months matching the couples through photographs and divine inspiration. At the appointed moment, the thousands of couples, some who barely knew each other, said, "I do." Being married by the Reverend Moon doesn't come cheaply, though. It can cost up to $40,000 if you're a Japanese couple. Suspicious minds have doubts about the authenticity of a song said to be a long-lost recording of Elvis Presley. But if it does turn out to be the real thing, it will be worth a king's ransom.
Jump to the left, jump to the right. Just one Elvis classic from the more than 800 songs he recorded during his career. Although it's 18 years since the King died, a new Elvis single could soon be in the charts. Rock and roll. Tonight, Elvis's record company was listening to an ancient recording of Let Me Make Believe a While, a song the King supposedly gave as a present to his security chief in the early 60s. He's now trying to sell it, but the experts remain unconvinced.
I think Elvis had a distinct vibrato to his voice, and that's certainly lacking in this recording. And also just the genuine breath control that he tended to have on all of his recordings seems to be missing from this one.
Do you want to listen to a bit of it? Here it is, Elvis.
A tape of the song made the airwaves today to give fans the chance to judge for themselves. Heartbreak was their response.
Anyone who had such a valuable item who did belong to Elvis would have sold it years ago, would have made their fortune and retired. Why wait 18 years to bring out such a classic thing?
Although the real owner is sadly no longer able to solve the mystery himself, the record will still be up for auction in Las Vegas in October.
While experts argue over the King of Rock and Roll's latest message from the grave, Australian soapy star and pop singer Kylie Minogue is again trying to steam up her image. Minogue has teamed up with another Aussie who's made it big in Europe, Gothic rock star Nick Cave.
When he knocked on my door and entered the room.
Called Where the Wild Roses Grow, the duet is a mournful ballad about a man of uncontrollable passion who finds Kylie so beautiful, he's compelled to kill her. Coming up in our Friday Sports Report, tonight's league, a preview of the weekend's big games, and Aussie Joe angling for a bout with another old stager, George Foreman. Sport now, and we're about to give the results of tonight's league match, so if you don't want to know, we suggest you leave the room for a moment or two. It was a critical game for both Cronulla and Newcastle, and after some great defence and controversial rulings, it was the Sharks who finished on top. Matt Rogers was the star, scoring 4 tries.
With the top 4 spot on the line, Newcastle had the early running, but Cronulla's defence proved good. 14 minutes in, the Sharks' Matt Rogers flew above the pack.
They go up for it. Rogers has come down with it, and I think he's going to give it. He's given it all right.
Cronulla, though, had trouble holding the ball, and with Newcastle camped in Sharks territory, Andrew Johns took advantage.
The run around for Johns, and there's a try.
But the Knights were error-prone too. The Sharks snaring a loose ball, and Rogers the fancy footwork.
Matt Rogers down the right flank. He stands them up and beats them.
The Knights were back level right on half-time. Robbie O'Davis over after a sustained attack.
Ross, they must score. They do.
After the break, O'Davis dived on a Cronulla kick, but it was Matt Rogers again who was over the line after stealing the ball.
Cleaned up, and Cronulla finish up with the football.
Then an even more controversial try. Good hands by the Sharks sent Rogers into the corner for his 4th.
4 tries. Did he get it down?
The replay showing he lost the ball. The Sharks were down to 12 with Mitch Healy sin-binned. The Knights making good use of the open spaces and getting to within 4 points.
Tackle, Ainsko, he's a country mile.
But the Newcastle defence couldn't hold a Cronulla bomb. Jeff Bell pouncing.
It came off the hands of Herman.
The Knights out of the game and the top 4. Raymond Dale for Nightline.
It's the final competition round of League Season 95, a season unlike any before, and with the advent of Super League, unlike any we're likely to see in the future. But competition is fierce for places in the playoffs, 3 teams vying for the last 2 positions.
Sunday marks the end of a footballing era at Belmore. Bulldogs 5/8, Terry Lamb running on there for the last time. He's the league's longest-serving player, 323 games, making him a reluctant legend at Canterbury.
If I didn't know whose it was and didn't know the person, I'd probably take a sight to it and throw a rock at it.
While the Bulldogs are sure of a place in the playoffs, Norths are anything but. Hooker Chris Caruana is suspended, and the club went high-tech hyperbaric in the hope of getting key players fit enough to take on the Gold Coast.
Homer Simpson.
David Fairley was ruled out this afternoon. After an upset draw against Souths, the Bears need to beat the Seagulls to stand a chance of making the 8. They're also relying on either Saints or Auckland losing. The Dragons are up against the Reds, who beat them earlier this year, but St George have come good late in the season as the club refines its identity.
But he's got support, and Mundine.
Auckland battle the Broncos, who've had their own internal wars this week. 3 players allegedly coming to blows outside a bar, but Alan Langer is back from injury and his broken hand survived the 18-hole test.
It's very good. I had a bit of a game of golf yesterday and it's pulled up well after that, so I should be right to play football.
Final 8 settled. The playoffs start next Friday at Parramatta Stadium. Mark Barland for Nightline.
Collingwood's late charge for the AFL finals continues tomorrow when they take on Richmond at the MCG. The Magpies are confident their winning streak will hold after 2 of their top players were cleared to play.
With Collingwood needing to win their last 2 games to have any chance of making the finals, the Magpies have been keeping a close eye on the injuries of Severio Rocker and Nathan Buckley. Today, Buckley was joined by former skipper Tony Shaw and coach Lee Matthews for a last-minute fitness test to prove he'd overcome a back injury. But the only worry for the Magpie trio was the gusty wind. Buckley will start with Rocker after the star forward came through training last night with flying colours.
Tomorrow's the only thing we've got in our minds, and obviously so it should be.
As for the Tigers, they're coming off that 77-point loss to Brisbane. In fact, the past couple of months have been a struggle.
A lot's been said. We've only won 2.5 games out of the last 8, but we've still been playing a pretty good style of footy and been with sides and just sort of gone down. So Yeah, we're looking forward to tomorrow.
The other big clash of the weekend is on Sunday, when league leaders Carlton tackle the reigning premiers West Coast in Perth. The Blues have won their last 11 games and need a further 2 to become the first team ever to win 20 home and away games. And the search has begun for a brand new coach at Sydney. Yesterday, Ron Barassi announced to a packed press conference he was giving the top job away at the end of the year.
My future will be with the Sydney Football Club, but not as a coach.
Barassi has joined the Swans board, his first job to help pick his replacement.
We're at a stage now where we can go on, and indeed, for all the efforts that's been expended by many, many good people, must go on.
Andrew Bensley for Nightline.
Former Australian cricket captain Alan Border is reconsidering his decision to play another season of Sheffield Shield cricket. Citing personal reasons and with the Shield under his belt, Border said he's not sure now and may quit first-class cricket altogether. In international cricket, England are in a strong position in the 6th and final test against the West Indies at the Oval. After a slow start yesterday, England has moved to 5 for 335 in their first innings, Graham Hick and Jack Russell dominating the Windies' pace attack. Greg Norman will continue in the World Series of Golf despite his dispute with Mark McCumber. Norman accused the American of repairing spike marks on the green and refused to sign his card. Jim Gallagher leads the series, but defending champion Jose Maria Olazabal is still in the hunt. Joe Bugner is at least honest about his boxing comeback at the age of 45. Money and the chance of a world title are the incentives. His first stoush will be against Vince Cervi for the Australian heavyweight crown.
If Bugner wins on September 22nd, he'll become the oldest fighter at 45 to hold an Australian title. Aussie Joe last stepped into the ring in October 1987 against Frank Bruno. At one stage, Bugner was declared bankrupt in Australia and England, and he admits money is a consideration, but it's not the sole reason for this comeback.
What matters to me is that you get this title and then go on to bigger things, and I think George Foreman is it.
Bugner's ultimate target arrived in Australia today, but the pugilistic preacher wasn't interested in the boxing kangaroo.
I like to see the kangaroo.
On holidays, the boxing granddaddy missed Mike Tyson's comeback fight, but he didn't miss the organisers for putting up an outrageous purse for Iron Mike.
Someone should be like Desiree and say no and mean it next time around.
At 46, Foreman is the oldest world heavyweight champion. He's prepared to put his IBF title on the line against Tyson, but reckons the young challenger fears the old champ.
Right now, he's not courageous enough to box me. He thinks he's been away for 3 years and he may not be able to deal with me. But I'm only a grandfather. I couldn't hurt him.
Chris Bombolas for Nightline.
And still to come on Nightline, the latest finance and the weekend weather.